Hey everyone, welcome to our LinkedIn Live event today. We're glad to have you here as we discuss the history of closing in Georgia. If you would like to receive a copy of this webinar, please email me directly at janis@realestateclosingpath.org. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. This recording is the exclusive property of Real Estate Closing Path. All video files and commentary shared during this session belong to RECP and may be used in future trainings or marketing promotions. Our intention is to represent you and RECP in the very best light. And if you're new here, a little bit about our background. We are the third branch in a suite of organizations owned by Marianne Harris. She started in the industry over 20 years ago with Positively Balanced, which provides third-party escrow account reconciliation services. Then in 2020, she launched Positively Closed, which provides remote closing support solutions. And we are Real Estate Closing Path. We started in 2021, and we provide training in all aspects of the closing process. And speaking of training, these are the different workshops that we offer. All of these can also be provided as a lunch and learn, either in office if you're in the Metro Atlanta area, or we can also do this virtually wherever else you may be located. We can also customize curriculum to meet your specific needs. Again, if interested, please reach out to us. We also invite you to follow us on the different social media platforms wherever you hang out, especially professionally. We have a presence on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and again at Real Estate Closing Path. Our lead trainer is Sandi Donaldson. She's been in the industry over 35 years, and so she brings a lot of relevant experience to the table. She's got a lot of great stories to share. She has really seen the industry evolve over the years, and she's got a little extra insight having worked on different sides of the whole settlement process. So we're excited to have Sandi here today, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to turn my camera off so you don't have to look at me and hear me, because that's a lot to ask of anybody. And we specifically talk about the history of real estate closings in Georgia, but the process, I was in Texas and I've worked some in Florida, and the process is similar regardless of which state you're in. So the first thing we're going to talk about a little bit is the process flow, and this has been the case from the time I originally got into this business in 1983, so long time. Some of you weren't born. And some of you have heard me say this before, but if you're familiar with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, there is a point at which they are talking with Captain Barbossa, the pirate captain, about the pirate rules. And he says, well, they're more like guidelines than actual rules. And that's the case with our process flow. It's more like a guideline. You can see on our slides, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. And don't we wish everything would go just like that? But it doesn't. Sometimes we order something and things come back out of order. We do things out of order. But in general, our trigger that we have a new transaction is and has always been on a purchase, the contract from the agents or the parties directly, if it's a for sale by owner, or a lender's title request on a refinance. The file is opened however you open it. Now it's in the software. Used to not have any software, so it was a whole different process. We're going to order our title search, all of the supporting documentation that we need, payoffs, HOA closing letters, buyer and seller information sheets, all of that. We search our title and review it and clear any outstanding items. Then we have to prepare a title commitment to send to the lender. We send that along with closing protection letter, preliminary settlement statement showing what our fees are, and by our, I mean the settlement agent, our wiring instructions, tax information, and they want to see our E&O policy in case we make a mistake or leave something out. So then we schedule the closing. Then the closer is going to compile everything that comes back that's been ordered. When people used to be upset at the table, I would say, I don't make any numbers up. I compile numbers that are sent to me. So if you have a problem with your HOA numbers, you need to be talking to your HOA because I didn't make them up. So we have to balance with the lender. We have to agree with the lender what the numbers are, bottom line. Then they're going to send us their closing package, and we'll talk about how that's done here in a minute. And then we put the package together, and the closing actually takes place. That the signing takes place. They sit at the table, and way back when I worked for an attorney that was just he and I. He was the only person in the office, and so I did the pre-closing. I prepared the package. I did the post-closing, and he was a very handsome man. So I told him, here's what your job is. Sit at the table, have them sign and look pretty. Keep everybody happy. That's what I need for you to do. So that's what he did. So then after closing, we've got to make sure that we've satisfied the lender requirements. In Georgia, the settlement agent works for the lender. We represent the lender, so we have to do what they say. So they send us their instructions, and we have to make sure that we followed all their instructions, and we've given them what they want to see to approve our disbursement. He who has the gold makes the rules, and the majority of the money generally is coming from the lender. So they tell us when that money can be dispersed, and we have to do it according to their instructions. Documents have to be recorded. If it doesn't get recorded, it didn't happen. So it has to be recorded with the county. If we stick a deed in the drawer and don't record it, then it's the same as if that closing never happened. Ownership never transfers. And then we have to issue our final title policies, which essentially is our role. That's what we have to do. The settlement agent is an agent of the title insurance underwriter, and everything we do is to the end of us being able to write a final title policy and ensure a clear title. So without that title agency, we're out of business. We can't write a policy. We can't do a closing because every lender wants a title policy. As a little aside, and to not get too terribly political, but in the most recent State of the Union, the president said one of the things he hoped to do was to reduce, because interest rates are so high and housing prices are so inflated, he said he wanted to reduce the cost to people to purchase a home. So he wanted to eliminate the requirement for lender's title insurance. Now, owner's title insurance is already optional. You do not have to buy it. If there is a mortgage loan, the mortgage lenders require lender's title insurance. So he's saying he wants to eliminate that mandate. I don't see how that's ever going to work, but because the majority of the money that the settlement agent makes, whether it's a title company, a closing attorney, and an attorney state, most of the money that they make doesn't come from their settlement fee. It comes from their split on the title insurance policies. So if people can start waiving title insurance policies, initially there will be a wave of that happening. And then there will be title issues that there's no coverage to protect people from. And then you'll see a reversal, I think, of it going back to that. So that's just leading into a great big mess, in my opinion. So let's talk about pre-1980. This probably predates most of you, but everything that we did, we requested by phone or fax. Everything that we got came back to us by fax or US mail. I specifically can remember I worked for a lender at the time in 1983, and I'm standing there on the phone with somebody that's faxing me information as the paper on the thermal paper is coming over the fax machine. And I'm saying, I don't understand how you're holding it and I'm holding it at the same time. I don't understand how that works. I still don't understand how it works. And we've progressed way past that. But the title searches were returned to us with a summary sheet on the front. We called it a run sheet. And all the supporting documents, the prior deeds and that kind of stuff. But there was no commitment returned to us. We had to prepare that ourselves. So we had a template for commitments, and we had to take all of the information that came back on the title search and type it onto the commitment template. Way back then, all of our desks had a typewriter return, right? Because we had an IBM Selectric over here. So we could put that thing in there and type it up. So the settlement statements, at the time they were all HUDs, they were blank. And we rolled them into our typewriter and typed the numbers in. So you can imagine, as you're going through the process, how many times you have to do that, because you type one to start out with the names and addresses and all that. And then as information comes, you have to roll it back in there and do it again. And if you have any mistakes, now you got to white them out. So you've either got a white out tape, or you have liquid white out that looks like fingernail polish that you white on there and blow it till it dries. Back then, FHA loan applications were 9-part carbons. So if you made a mistake, you had to take it out of the typewriter, put the white out on every page, blow each page until it was dry, and then it took all day to type an FHA loan application. So it was very, very interesting. The money came to us via cashier's check. The lenders would overnight their closing package to us, and the lender check was in the package. The buyers would come to us with a certified check, and that's the way it went. And then after they signed, we had to make photocopies of everything they signed and handed it to them. You can imagine what a nightmare this is. We made copies for the buyer, everything they sign, copies for the seller of everything they sign. And then they promptly go out and throw that folder in their trunk. So every curve they take for the next, however long it is till January of the next year, that stuff is thrown all over the trunk of their car. Then in January, they're calling us saying, can you fax me a copy of my settlement statement? Because I can't find the one you gave me and I've got to do my tax returns. So again, no email. So fax it over, or they would come by, we'd make a copy and they'd come by and pick it up. And when we got ready to record, we took the documents to record. We made copies, so we had photocopies. We stapled the recording check, transfer and intangible tax, to the face page of the document, put it in overnight, FedEx it to the county. If there were any mistakes in recording, the county would send it back with a sheet on the top explaining what your mistake was and what you needed to correct. So then we would fix whatever and send it back. Now, in Georgia, as you know, if there's a mortgage loan, we collect intangible tax, which is $3 a thousand of the loan amount. So if you've got $100,000 loan amount, we're talking about $300. Okay, so that has to be recorded within 60 days. If it's not, then now we're into the penalty, and the county starts adding penalty and interest onto your intangible tax. So you can see how in this mailing back and forth, you could get into the penalty fairly easily. It doesn't really happen very much now because everything's uploaded to e-recording the same day or the very next day. So nothing goes into 60 days anymore. But you know, if you had one digit wrong on the parcel ID, or you attached the wrong legal description, or the buyer forgot to initial page 6 of the security deed, anything like that, they could send it back to you for correction. We had to keep copies, of course, because they're going to call us and ask us for something. So every settlement office had bags of file cabinets, and we would keep hard copies of every file. You have to keep them for 7 years. And so when it got to be, you know, different offices, depending on their space, would keep them at their physical location for a certain amount of time. Our office kept them for 24 months. And after that, they got boxed up and sent to Iron Mountain to be preserved. So then if we needed something from a file that was older than that, I literally had to get in my car and go to the Iron Mountain storage facility and find the box and pull it out and bring that file back with me, make a copy, and then drive back to Iron Mountain, put it back in the box. You can see, I spent a lot of time driving around. Title policies, we had tablets of just like a legal pad, but it had templates, blank templates of title policies. So we would tear one off, type in the next policy number, type in the particulars of that. So they were hand typed. So then we had to make the original of the loan policy went to the lender, the original, the owner's policy went to the buyer, and then we had to return copies to the underwriter with the check for their portion, for their split of the premium. So normally we would get all that done, put them in a folder, and the reps would come by like once a month and pick up their money. So now it's remitted immediately when we disperse, but then they didn't get their money for like a month. So it was an interesting time. Now, in all of this time, up until we started RECP, I'd sent countless deeds for record. I had never been in the courthouse deed room. So because our role is to issue a policy on a clear title, where does that information come from? Where does the title information even come from? And what does it mean? So title in this context refers to the ownership history of the property. One of our great guest speakers that is the premier title curative, she says title is about the dirt. It's not about your structure. It's not about your car sitting in the driveway. It's about the dirt and nothing above it. So when you go into the clerk deed room, the clerk in Paulding County let us go. And I know some of y'all, I know Barbara was with us when we went to do this. So we can see what's happening. Most information now, the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority will tell you that everything that's been recorded in every county, 159 counties in Georgia, from 1990 forward is now in a digital database. Anything before 1990, depending on the county and how many they had to scan and upload, they might still be in the county courthouse. So if you're looking for a deed from 1950, it may not be in the digital database yet. We were shown how they are stored and can be retrieved electronically. But when you get a deed, when you're looking at a deed and it says deed book and page, it literally means book. There are books. You see all these books and they have their pages and you can flip to them and find them. They are in the courthouse, literal books and pages. And this is Paulding County, right? So can you only imagine what Fulton County looks like? DeKalb, Gwinnett, even Cobb, some of the really big counties, what they look like so far. So the clerk in Paulding County told us that the examiners that come in the office, they refer to them as deed dogs because they're digging around at information, trying to get the information about the ownership history of that property. And there was an older gentleman in there that had probably been researching title for God knows how long. And he pulled out a book and showed us this, which I know you can't read, nor can I. But this is a handwritten deed. In 1838, the state line between Georgia and Alabama was redrawn. So this is the deed where Alabama is deeding a strip of land north to south to Georgia. Handwritten deed from 1838. That's so astounding to me. But when they received documents for recording, she showed us in their proprietary system, they just like an email, deeds pop up for them to record electronically, e-recording situation. But some still come in the mail. Before 2020, e-recording was becoming a thing, but every county did not e-record. Some of the more remote counties, like the breakfast counties, coffee and bacon, did not record digitally. So they were still mailing in their deeds. So COVID brought the necessity for all of us, every county, to record electronically because the courthouses were closed. They weren't letting anybody in for anything else. And so anyway, so we got to see some of that happen. But before they were stored, I love this. I joke all the time and say I'd love to have this on my dining room wall. I think it's so pretty. But these are vertical drawers. So you would pull them out and you can see some of them still have the labels on them that held the books at one time in Paulding County. Also, while deeds still do the same thing they did, they transfer the ownership from one party to another. They look different and the properties are different. Now, since this is just us chickens, inside people, I will tell you that Janis was cleaning out her parents' home and she found some very interesting things. She found this envelope that says deeds on it. Okay, so what's that all about? So you look and you've got a deed that's on legal paper and it's folded over. So now it's just, one little horizontal strip. And the recording says it's recorded in book 29, folio 79, 1908. Imagine that. So, and it says a deed has to have some consideration on it. This one says $1 in love and affection. Deeds now in Georgia say $10. And the reason they do is because for a long time, until flat fee recording, that's what it costs to record the first page of a deed, $10. And so back then it was $1. So that's what it said. So it tells when it is. This one recorded in 1909, 23rd day of November, 1909. Imagine that. So again, no copy machine, not even any mimeograph machine like I had in elementary school. If you wanted a copy, you had to make a copy. You had to write it twice. And so she said there were 3 handwritten copies in that envelope. Back then, all the notary seals were raised. There weren't stamps like we have now. You can still get a raised notary seal if you want it, but I don't know anybody that does it now. And you can see how it's not staples. It's these old push pins. This says the date of sale was August 16th, 1906, and it wasn't recorded until 1907. Also, this is very interesting to me. The legal description was typed in red, so you don't miss it. Now we change the font or we make it italics or something, or it's on a separate page. But in this case, the legal description was typed in red, so we don't miss it. I guess that's the equivalent of the words of Jesus, right? And it says, in other words, you hold it, you keep it. And the deeds don't say that anymore. But the date of recording, so it closed in August. It didn't get recorded till February of the next year. There was no e-recording. I don't even know how often the mail ran, right? So I just find that really, really interesting. So even though the method has changed, we still have to preserve the ownership history. You can't, we talk about this in one of our workshops, but you have to convey title. Convey means give. You have to convey the same way you took title. So we have to preserve that ownership history so we know who owns it. And any of us that have been on the closing sign have gotten a title back when the name of the vested owner is not our seller that's on the contract. So sometimes it's an estate, a corporation, like that, a trust. So those kind of things happen. But I referenced back in the beginning that closing software, settlement software is relatively new. The first integrated settlement software system launched in 1979. You could input stuff and save it. Like a Word, you type a letter and save it on your computer. It had macros, codes to calculate your title premiums, intangible transfer tax and all that. Before that, and even when I started in the early 80s, we didn't have this software. So we're doing it by hand. Your title premiums were literally, when you hear an underwriter say the book rate, title premiums were literally in a book. And you would pick up the book from your underwriter and flip through until you found your loan amount, and there was your title premium. But even this very elementary software simplified it and expedited what we could do. You could do it a lot faster because now I don't have to roll it at the typewriter every time. I just open the file and put whatever's new. And it improved our accuracy. It was easier to make changes. Now you'd be hard pressed to find a bottle of liquid whiteout. That went kind of the way of the dodo. We don't have to worry about that anymore, thank goodness. Beginning in 1984, that was the year the Mac computer was made public, and software began to evolve and offer some additional things for us. In the beginning, we could prepare the settlement statement, but that was all. We still had to keep hard files. We kept our papers in the file. But and back then we ordered our title search by calling up the examiner on the phone or faxing him over a copy of the contract. That was what we did. They didn't even have websites where they had portals at that point. So the software began to have integrations with third parties, which was like, oh my gosh, I'm in Landtech, which was the first one. I'm in Landtech and I can order my search right here without having to fax it over. Great, So the first fully digital settlement platform launched in 2015. Anybody have a guess which one that is? Janis is typing, so I'm gonna wait and see what her answer is. Nope, not SoftPro. It was Qualia. SoftPro did have and does have sort of a hybrid situation, but it's not completely remote. You still have to have the application downloaded on your computer, but I can take my computer home and log into Qualia from anywhere. That's okay. No, Kelly, it was not SoftPro. Just kidding. So Qualia you can log into from anywhere. And some of the newer ones are the same way. Now I can't think what it's called. Closing View is the same way. Landtech Lime is the same way. You can log in from anywhere. So they are completely web-based. So that meant because there's unlimited accessibility, everybody started trying to catch up. So Qualia set a standard in 2015, and now SoftPro went from SoftPro Enterprise to SoftPro Select, which is more toward what Qualia does. So now we have more sophisticated integrations. We can order searches, we can generate policies, we can submit our e-recording all through our software. And now the most advanced softwares we can generate documents, we can generate our deeds. We can email out of the application. We can store documents in our software. So now we don't have to have all those file cabinets. And some software still don't have document storage, so you have to have another application like Closing Site to store your documents. But some softwares do offer that. Now, you can generate reports, production reports, status reports. How many do we have in process? How many are supposed to close this month? How many are above $500,000? You can generate all kinds of reports. We can send emails out of our software. Some of them even have capability that you can give access to the parties, and your realtor can upload their commission directly into Qualia, and they don't have to send it to me. Anything that doesn't involve me, yay. So again, SoftPro is like a remote hosted version. But even that, as recently as 2019, I was working in SoftPro Enterprise. So it's server based. And we had a power outage. Our server went down and we lost everything in the server. Fortunately for us, we had an external backup. If we had not had that, we would have been in major trouble the very next day. But we migrated over to SoftPro Select for that reason, because that does minimize the risk of data loss. Anything that is remote hosted or is fully virtual, now you're being stored in the cloud, right? So we don't lose all of our stuff, thank goodness. You know, things keep changing all the time. And as an old person that doesn't like change, it's a lot of new learning. But in the 60s, you can see this picture down here that it looks like Whopper in War Games, gigantic computer, and computer-based messaging began to evolve. So there were proprietary systems where, like, the employees of Xerox, IBM, and all that could communicate with each other. It wasn't external. It wasn't until 1995 that the SEC eliminated restrictions on carrying commercial traffic. Email did not become available to the public until then. Imagine that. That's recent. So we have changed the way we collect and disseminate information. It's been tweaked here and there. RESPA regulations have changed. We've had in my tenure in this business since '83, we have had two big RESPA changes that affected settlement. RESPA is a Real Estate Protection Act, and they have federal guidelines over what we can and cannot do. And in 2011, they changed the way lenders have to disclose to borrowers. We used to have origination fee and discount points, and that was all. And you didn't have to break it down and tell them what part of that origination fee went to this, that, and the other. So the change in 2011 was supposed to protect borrowers against predatory lending. It really didn't, because they just disclosed it, but it was still there. But the loan application, the 1003, went from 2 pages to 5 because of the way it had to be disclosed. And then in 2016, again, RESPA's going, we got to protect these borrowers. So we went from HUDs to closing disclosures. That was the point at which I was going to quit, because I was never doing a closing disclosure. Yet here I am. So, you know, it was just a different format of a way that things had to be disclosed according to RESPA regulations. And the manner of document storage, hard drive backup has changed. You know, some attorneys, and we have had, even as recently as in our RECP classes, we have had 2 ladies that worked for an attorney that was one of them's grandpa. So he's been in business longer than me. And he still used the original land tech, and they kept hard files still. So, you know, your capacity has to change, your storage capacity, and also I would imagine your fire insurance, because that's a huge fire hazard. But, you know, things change. And so when we have digital storage, now we have potential fraud or loss of stored documentation. So, you know, there are always risks all the way around. January 1st, '83 is considered the official birthday of the internet. But again, as we talked about it, its usage started off with email, became common in 1995. But the internet allowed companies to establish portals. So now the examiners have portals, which sometimes are linked through our software. The title insurance underwriters have portals. The lenders have portals. So they'll send us a link to the portal and we'll log into the portal and retrieve the closing package. Then when it's over, we scan it and upload it to their portal. A lot of times that's what they ask us to do. So we still are following the lender instructions. It's just that their instructions change because of what's available to them. There's all kinds of other advances. We can do a transaction a lot quicker. Now, transactions used to be 30 to 45 days. Some of them could be 60 days if it was a government loan. Because remember, the lenders had to mail out all their verification requests. We didn't ask for W-2s and pay stubs. We had to send a verification of employment to their employer. We had to send a verification of a deposit form to their bank. We didn't ask for bank statements. So it was a lot different than it is now on the lending side and on their side. In the beginning of all of this, I was a loan officer, and I remember when we went to automated applications. So I went around taking loan applications with a little cart that had my laptop and a portable printer because everything still had to be wet signed. So I would take their application on my laptop and then print out all the documentation, and the borrowers would sign it. So it does seem like everything's a lot simpler and a lot faster, and it is, but we didn't worry about fraud back then. We didn't worry about digital fraud or cyber fraud. We didn't have any of that. There wasn't any money changing hands over wires, so we didn't have to worry about that. So as we evolve, there are new threats, so sometimes in the beginning, things happen that nobody's prepared for because that threat's never occurred before. So it's always astounding to me what the new threats are, and we get emails about them every single day from title underwriters, from software, everywhere. But things have changed so much from the beginning of my career, and I can only imagine, in 10 more years, I won't have any idea what's going on. So we can only imagine, what it's going to look like 10 years from now. But just when we look at people that have been in the industry a long time and we think, oh my gosh, they're not with it on all the new things. You think about when I sit here, Janis and I discussed this yesterday, when I sit here and think about all the changes that I've seen, imagine the diversity and severity, for lack of a better word, changes that are coming in the future. At some point, as antiquated as the way I started seems to most of you, the way we do things now is going to seem that way to people going forward in the future. But we can see that as far back as time, property has changed hands. They used to kill each other over it, and then now I took this because I killed the owner. Fortunately, we don't do that anymore. But property has always changed hands. People are always going to be buying and selling real estate. So and it's always going to be money involved. So all of our companies are always going to have something to do. We're just going to have to be, we're kind of like standing at four corners where four states converge, right? We got one leg in one state and one leg in another state, one in the past and one in the future, because we got to figure out how we came to be where we are now and use that information to do the best job we can going forward to make ourselves more efficient. But I always struggle as to not make the people obsolete. So anyway, anybody have any questions, comments, snide remarks about anything that we've talked about? Nobody asked how old I am. Okay, Janis, do you have anything to add?
Turn here, I'll come back on mic, and it looks like Kelly's typing, so we'll pause to see if it's a question or comment. That she agrees, it's all fascinating. Yeah, I love the history that you've shared and can only imagine how things will change in the future. Love seeing the old documents, and again, all very fascinating. So thank you, Sandy, for sharing your expertise as always. Just a reminder, let's see if it will let me scroll ahead here. Actually, it's not going to let me, so I'm just going to end on this slide and say again, thanks for being here. We'll have another LinkedIn Live event in June where we have a guest speaker who's a mortgage broker. So if you've ever had an interest or any questions for a mortgage broker, we would invite you to join us again in June. So again, thank you, Sandy. Thanks everyone for being here, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Yep, take care. Bye-bye.